And if we were to do everything right, which of course we are already, but
naturally,
I would say we could probably top out at maybe $30,000 to $35,000. But again,
in revenue,
in gross revenue per year, and that's probably with $5,000 or $7,000 in expenses. But like I said,
not including your labor.
Yeah, no, that would be the net would be paying us. But like I said, I mean, it really, really is difficult. You need to be good. You need to be as good at working with a spreadsheet as you are working a plow, as you are knowing what's in Martha Stewart magazine and on restaurant menus, and being able to market your products in a way that is going to generate a good value and essentially what it's worth, for you to be growing that. So, I would say it is possible, but in terms of, can we expect that, those numbers to be the norm? I would say probably not. I think like any business, you're probably going to have, maybe 10% of the entrepreneurs who do really well. You're going to have, maybe 10% who completely fail, and the spectrum in the middle are going to be varying degrees of success. So I really don't want to sugarcoat things any more than I need to, because there are these great opportunities. But at the same time, I mean, it's hard work.
Half an acre. How much time does that require of your cultivation and attention each day?
It varies throughout the season, but I would say we probably spend somewhere between 15 to maybe 25 hours a week out there. So I mean,
meaning how many people?
Well, my girlfriend Virginia and I do the majority of the work, and then we have a couple friends who help out with the heavy lifting. And so if you break down the numbers, it probably comes out to maybe $9 or $10 an hour. And if we got a little better germination some days, and if we sold out every single week at the market, we could probably top out at around $14 or $15. But again, this is not. I mean, it's not like the jobs that we're used to, I would say, and
meaning that it's work.
Exactly. Yeah.
Graham, you got the farm that you are working on, and the project that you're working on is a 6-acre farm, 12 times the size of the farm that Peter's talking about. Can you describe briefly the business plan and also the role that refugees are playing in this, and whether or not you really think that it's going to be enough for them to live on?
It's nearly 6 acres. 6 acres is sugarcoating it a bit.
5+.
Well, we're looking at it, and it started as an incubator concept. So when we first looked at the property, and this was work that had been done by a number of people, Peter had put together a 1-page executive summary about the potential for this project. I saw it for the first time in January, but people had been thinking about it and wrapping their heads around it. And what we discovered is if we could bring some people in the room and get it so that we could be farming this summer, we had to do it accelerated, and we had to get a lot of motivated people who were willing to put their necks on the line to a certain extent. And it was a collaboration between the CDC, CMHA, who really went out on a limb and said, we'll trust you guys to develop this 6 acres, and then the Refugee Response in Great Lakes. And the Refugee Response is a nonprofit organization that was set up by Dave Wallace and Paul Neuendorfer. And Paul is a celebrated landscape architect. He's got a private firm called Aristotle Enterprises, and he helped putting the conceptual plans together in terms of, all right, we've got this vision to develop this 6 acres. What does it look like, and how do we then get it in front of people so that they can understand the vision a bit more as well? And so OCNW, which is Ohio City Near West, helped, with the help of the Refugee Response, looked at the number of plots that you could do in year 1 to get this off the ground. And we had some obstacles that presented themselves, as any entrepreneur will attest to. You have to look at them and overcome them. And one of them was getting started June 30th as opposed to breaking ground in April. And the Refugee Response has half of a parcel, and then the Great Lakes Brewing Company licensed half of a parcel, and then Central Roots, which is one of the Reimagining More Sustainable Cleveland projects, has the northern end of it. So in terms of a business model, each of those folks will be individually responsible for making those plots viable. So my role in the role of OCNW is more as developer. I'm not a farmer. I don't throw on my overalls and straw hat and go out there. In terms of how it works with the refugees, it's this program that's called REAP, and it's Refugee Empowerment Agricultural Program. And the idea is to bring in refugees. And the reason why there was such a great fit with the refugees was there's a need assessment done over the winter. And you've got a large population of refugees settling in Cleveland. And you found that the vast majority of those resettled families had agricultural backgrounds. They're coming from Burma, Somalia, Burundi. We've got somebody that we just brought on board from Bhutan. So all these farmers who have come on board farmed in their own homeland, and now through this REAP program that the Refugee Response is administrating, you've got a farm manager who is from Ashtabula, who's from Jefferson, named James Hamilton, and he's helping teach these refugees the difference in terms of soil quality, climate, and then also market needs. And so the idea is that they don't necessarily make a, they'll grow in their knowledge of agriculture so that they can be empowered and next year either hold one of the leadership positions within the farm, learn more from programs that Ohio State Extension does, which is a godsend to our community, and go out and find a plot of land that they can then become self-sustaining.
How much does what's happening right now, Ifeoma, I want to direct this question to you. You brought up the food desert problem earlier, the fact that there are places both in the city and outside of the city, across the region, where people do not have access to fresh fruits and vegetables. In terms of what is happening in Cleveland, how much does this actually change that? If, I mean, you have most farmers markets are now accepting the Ohio Direct card, and so the people who are receiving those kinds of benefits can purchase food, subsidized food at the farmers market. But the farmers markets are also at the prices are much higher, so I guess that works out. But how much of a dent are you making in the food desert problem with these kinds of projects?
You know, we can only base it on the people that we've come in contact with. There's no data per se, and I don't want to guess at numbers, but I can say that it's definitely an increasing interest, and we are seeing a lot of awareness, because change begins with awareness, and a lot of times people are beginning to recognize the difference between food that is locally grown and is nutrient dense versus food that have traveled for weeks on a truck and possibly have something spread on it that our local food we are trying to encourage, and that's part of why we require the training through the Ohio State University Extension. So we believe we are making an impact because we are seeing that people are beginning to be more conscious. And I too am a gardener. I do community gardening, and just from going to the garden and seeing the hundreds of local residents that are involved in urban agriculture, I believe that the message is getting out there. We've only had this program for a year, so that's not enough time to gather the data that we need to be able to put out actual numbers.
Dan, let me add that there's some institutional problems as well that really state and federal government have to address. I mean, we would like to get more grocery stores into areas where there are a lot of food stamps, people on food stamps. One of the problems is the way the stamps come out, they come out all at once. So you have a grocery store just overwhelmed for the first couple of days of the month, and the rest of the month there's not enough traffic to go through to make it profitable. Well, the solution is obviously try to spread out the food stamps, but you'd be amazed at how hard that is to get a change in the system. But we'll work on it to try to
You mean government works slowly sometimes?
Sometimes.
Oh. Ifeoma, you wanted to add something.
Thank you, Director. I actually wanted to add that in addition to funding the urban gardeners and the market gardeners, we actually have other financial incentive programs. So we fund grocery stores, for instance. We funded the Constantino's Market